Hey, how's it going? Today, we're gonna talk about public speaking, specifically how to manage public speaking anxiety. Why? Because we all know what it's like to get up in front of a group of people and suddenly find ourselves extremely nervous. Now, this comes in a lot of different varieties and a lot of different ways, but I'll never forget the first time this happened to me. I was in the 7th grade. A science teacher had given me a project to do. Got up in front of my peers. I was already horrified at the particular subject matter that she had assigned to me, and all of a sudden I'm standing in front of all of these people. I gotta talk about all this crazy stuff, and my heart just started to feel like it was gonna pound out of my chest. Well, in the 7th grade, I didn't know what to do, but now, it's a lot of years later, I know exactly what to do to manage that kind of speaking anxiety. And the truth is, everybody gets nervous. Some people, they deal with it in different ways. Some people don't actually even feel it, but just the act of being in front of people to communicate causes something to happen inside of you to pump you full of adrenaline, something your body gives you in order to produce energy to perform in the moment. And what happens when you have all of that energy and nowhere to go? You feel nervous. So basically, public speaking anxiety is just this feeling of unease that's related to an uncertain outcome, specifically in this instance, public speaking. And anxiety itself is defined that way. It's a feeling of unease related to an uncertain outcome. But what causes anxiety? Like, what causes that? There's a lot of different things that can bring that on. We're going to get into 3 specific things in a moment, but there's a reason why we need to nail this right here and right now. Because here we are, starting our journey together, hopefully, and there's some big stakes on the line for getting this right. If you bomb some opportunity that you have to speak in front of people, maybe you get a bad grade, maybe you don't land a sell, maybe you fail some big goal that you've set. It depends on the environment you're speaking into and the crowd, and there's big circumstances no matter the environment, because you only get to speak that one time to that one group of people for that one particular reason. So we want to ace it. We don't want to get the bad grade or fail our big goal. And every speaking engagement has one big goal. But also there's, an internal issue that we have to deal with when it comes to public speaking. Because if we feel like we bomb or we don't get it right or whatever, you don't want to leave your appointment or your opportunity feeling like a failure or disappointing yourself. And here's the truth. Your audience deserves to hear what you have to say, free of the distraction that your nerves can cause. Why? Because you have something to say that's worthwhile. It's something awesome. And I hope that today I can help you figure out how to do that in a way that's a little less nervous. So specifically, speech anxiety is a social anxiety arising from the anticipation of a presentation. And there are 3 different factors that come into play that are potential causes for this kind of anxiety. One of them, the first one, is maybe like a lack of positive experience. Maybe you just never done it before. Maybe you've done it 3 or 4 times, or you stood up and gave a toast at a wedding, or you talked at a birthday party or something. But for most people, their exposure to this is pretty minimal, and their positive experience is maybe even less. Maybe some of you have done it before and it did not go well. You didn't have a positive experience, and so now it caused you to get even more nervous when you set out to do it. For some, the second factor, or the second potential cause for speaking anxiety, is that they find themselves in front of a group of people and they suddenly feel different. They feel different. They look out across the crowd and the people that are sitting there just seem so different than who they are. I want you to do me a favor. Unless you're in the room by yourself, because then this would be kind of weird. But if you're watching this with anybody, with a group of friends or whatever, I just want you to look around for a second. If you're not with anybody, you just look at me. Here's the truth, okay? All those people you just looked at, whether it was me or somebody in the room with you, they're all weird. Everybody's weird. There's no really any such thing as normal. And so I get it though. Some people, when they get in front of a group of people, they feel different. They think that their differences are going to be highlighted, and it causes them to feel even more nervous. And then the third reason, the third thing that potentially causes anxiety for people is suddenly when they find themselves being the center of attention. Now, this is a big deal for a lot of people. And what's actually ironic is in my own life, everything that I do, I find myself being at the center of attention. I mean, I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher, I've done business consulting, doing this stuff on YouTube and all that. You often find yourself in being the center of attention when you live and work in those formats, but it's not anything I ever set out to do, to be the center of attention. But here we are, and I get it. Suddenly all the eyeballs are on you. Suddenly you've got the microphone in your hand. You have the platform. It's your voice that commands the attention. You are the center of attention. And some people, when the moment that reality becomes true, their heart just starts to boom, boom, boom. So I'm going to walk you through some things you can do to navigate that today. But specifically what we want to do in our short time together right now is we're going to identify 4 different stages of when speaking anxiety comes on, and we're going to look at like what those can do and maybe even how you can counteract them. Okay, so there's 4 different stages. The first stage is called pre-preparation anxiety. Pre-preparation anxiety. If you're in a classroom or you're in an environment where you're getting ready to do something in an academic field, it's the moment you find out you have an assignment or a presentation. And so it's just the day or the minute that they hear that they have to give that particular presentation. If you're in the business setting, the boss walks in and says, "Hey, I need you to prepare this particular report to come and give us tomorrow morning." The moment that you find out you're expected to deliver something out loud with your voice to other human beings, that's pre-preparation anxiety. You haven't even started thinking about it yet, but it makes you nervous. The second place that anxiety comes on, the second starting point, is preparation anxiety. Preparation anxiety is when you actually sit down to put what's going on in your head to paper or on that Word document or on your computer or whatever. You start actually working out your thoughts and organizing them. And you suddenly feel nervous, like there's just too much to do. How am I going to cram this all in? I don't know what to say or how to say it. And just like the first one, in the pre-preparation anxiety, some people will delay getting started. But preparation anxiety is kind of the same way. They feel so overwhelmed by the time and the planning required, the commitment, that it produces stress and it causes procrastination and sometimes outright avoidance of what you got to do. So here's the fix to that. You have to immerse yourself in the preparation process, but then you also calm your nerves by taking short breaks. I used to be really overwhelmed with this preparation anxiety moment, and the way that I found to beat it was just by taking breaks. So I would work in 15-minute increments. Anymore, now that I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, I like to work in bursts of about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 45 minutes. Work for a little while, take a break. When you take a break, if you can, take a break for 4 hours. That's about how long your mind needs to reset, and then come back, try it again, do it again, and you'll ace it. You'll just be at a new place mentally and you'll be able to tackle it. It works, trust me. The third part, or the third place that some people begin to experience speech anxiety, is what we call pre-performance anxiety. In pre-performance anxiety, this is the moment you're at the event, you're in the classroom, it's almost your turn. You know your time to speak is coming up really soon. You're sitting there in your seat and you're nervous and you haven't even got the mic yet. You're not even in front of that group of people yet, but already your heart is doing that. Boom, boom, boom. And you feel the blood rushing to your ears and your adrenaline starting to pump you up. That pre-performance anxiety can cause us to just want to avoid the situation. Sometimes it happens when you haven't even made it to the venue yet. You're just at home, and rather than rehearse, you try to avoid it because you don't want to experience that feeling. That's not the way to go. The way to push through the pre-performance anxiety is to get plenty of rest before the event. Make sure you have a good meal ahead of time. Don't eat junky stuff. Get some good rest, all of that kind of thing, and practice, 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 because confidence is a great way to overcome speech anxiety, which we'll get to a little bit more in a minute. Finally, though, we got to talk about number 4, which is the actual performance anxiety. For most people who speak, anxiety is highest just as their speech begins. So the moment you take the platform, you get the microphone, you're standing in front of a group of people, that's when your anxiety hits its high point. And there's an amazing phenomenon that happens to us psychologically. In fact, I have a great friend who communicates all over the place, and he is really good at it. And every time almost he'll tell me, I felt like I looked so nervous. Well, the phenomenon is actually that more often than not, if you feel really nervous and you think you appear incredibly nervous to the crowd, you actually don't. Most people never even notice unless they know what to look for. You just have to be confident, be well prepared, and go in and ace it. You'll do well. So let me give you some quick tips before we get into some other stuff about how to manage this. First of all, focus on the information rather than the outcome. Like, don't get caught up on if it's a grade or if you're trying to land a sale or you're trying to persuade somebody or negotiate something. Don't focus on any of that stuff. Focus on what you're actually saying, because hopefully by the time you have the opportunity to get in front of a group of people to say what you're saying, you've worked really hard to craft a message that's going to add value to their life in that moment, and it's a one-time opportunity. So don't focus on the outcome, focus on what you have to say, and say it well. The second thing that you can do to build some confidence is just practice a ton. Practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. In fact, typically, I would challenge a beginner communicator. You need to practice the talk that you're going to give no less than a dozen times. It's sort of like the old musical adage, if you've ever been a singer or anything. You practice and you practice until you can't really stand the idea of practicing. And once you get to that point, you practice it one more time. The goal is to be able to practice it so much that you can deliver it artfully. Another thing that can help a little bit with anxiety is try not to speak too quickly. This is a big fault of mine. You might have already noticed. I get so passionate about the things that I have to say that I just, and I want to get it all out there. Don't be afraid to slow it down, to be extremely articulate and careful with your words. Don't let your words stumble over each other, because the ones you chose matter so much for that moment. So don't practice not speaking too quickly. And then also, when you're actually doing those rehearsals, hopefully that you're going to do, time your practice so that you can sort of gauge an expected average length for the talk that you're going to give. And the truth is, all of these things, they'll boost your confidence, and confidence is a key factor when it comes to overcoming anxiety in the public speaking space. So how do we do that some more? How do we build more confidence beyond those quick tips that I just gave you? Well, first of all, obviously we talked about practice. We talked about a little bit about preparation. You want to make sure you've worked hard to create something worthwhile that you can be confident in. But also, what can you do leading up to those moments? Well, the first thing, modify your thoughts and your attitudes. So many people, they go in and they dread an opportunity to speak or something like that. And that's just going to start you off on the wrong foot. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but the number one fear in America is public speaking. The number two is death. The old joke used to be people would be rather doing the funeral than rather be in the box than doing the funeral. But you have to modify your thoughts and your attitudes. You have to flip those negative thoughts, get them out of your head, because they only will increase your anxiety in that moment. So as you prepare for and then also deliver your speech, envision it as a valuable, worthwhile, and challenging activity. Focus on it as an opportunity toward, but not a threat to, your personal growth. And it's gonna change the way you feel about it. And that comes out in the way that you deliver it. I don't know if you remember the old cartoon with the coyote chasing the roadrunner, but at the beginning of every one of those cartoons, he used to always sit there and he'd get this little bubble over his head, and it was him cooking this bird over a fire or something. He was visualizing success. that never turned out really good for the coyote, but it's different for you in the speaking space when you modify your thoughts and your attitudes and you begin to visualize success. And the truth is, visualization, it's just this practice of like summoning feelings and actions consistent with a successful performance. You envision where you want to go, how you want to nail it, and guess what? If you really do that, your behavior and your delivery are going to begin to follow that confidence. Another thing that you can do is begin to envision that delivery or that speech as a conversation. Think of it as a conversation. You're sitting down with a buddy at lunch over tacos and you're just chatting about something that happened. You're telling a friend a story. And I actually firmly believe every speaking opportunity, including this one right now, is a chance to tell a story. And we all know what it's like to tell a friend a story. Every speaking opportunity is that moment, that chance. You're telling a friend a story. So there's some really practical hands-on stuff that we're going to chat about for just a second as we get ready to kind of wrap this up. And that is what we call activating a relaxation response. These are things that you can do that actually will help to somewhat change your physiology. In other words, it's going to affect your body. These practices will, in a way that will help you nail this. So the first one is briefly meditate. Now, that doesn't mean you light some candles and burn some incense and you sit in your room and hum. Meditation is focused thinking about a thing. And so for you, it could be simply that visualization, altering your attitudes and your behaviors and your thoughts as you're leading up to the speaking moment. But briefly meditate. Maybe you're sitting there in your desk or your seat and you're about to get this opportunity to speak. You just sit there and you just try to clear your mind for a second and meditate on this chance that's coming up, and you'll ace it. The second thing, and this is something that I learned a while back that has really benefited me. I used to be an insomniac. I'd have so much trouble falling asleep. In fact, my wife would go nuts because I would just toss and turn all night sometimes. And finally, I came across something that taught me how to control my breathing, use stress control breathing in a way it actually will slow down your heart. And you can do this right before you take the platform or right before you get a mic in your hand or right before you're in front of an audience. You can literally force your heart to slow down, and it helps with that anxiety. So I'm going to teach you how to do that right now. And I don't know where you are, if anybody's around you, but I promise you it's going to be weird for a minute. So just go with me, okay? This is how it works. To activate stress control breathing, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to breathe in through your nose. So my nose is really big. It can breathe in a lot real fast, but I'm not trying to breathe in a lot. I'm just trying to take a normal breath, and I'm going to breathe in for about 4 seconds. So just like, okay, and once I've breathed in for 4 seconds, then I'm gonna hold that air in for about 6 seconds. So breathe in, and then hold it, and then I'm gonna let it out for about 8 seconds through my mouth. That's an important factor. In through your nose, and then you hold it, and then you let it out through your mouth for about 8 seconds. Now I told you this was gonna be weird for a second. Here we go. We're gonna count it off. So in, hold, and then out through your mouth. And then you just repeat that. And even just doing it that one time, my body's become so accustomed to doing that over the years now. I don't even have to think about it anymore. When I go to sleep, boom, I just do that. And in moments, if I feel anxiety coming on, and I still get nervous in front of crowds sometimes, even after doing this for all these years, that actually helps. I promise you. It's super weird the first time, but once you get used to it, it works. It just works. And then the third thing that's super practical that you can do before you begin a speaking opportunity is stretch. I know it's weird, right? We used to think we had to stretch if we worked out or ran or whatever, but stretching works when you get ready to speak too. Your body is designed in a way that it responds when you stretch. Things and chemicals and stuff that I don't even understand, but somebody smarter than me does, will actually activate and help calm you down when you stretch. And then finally, once you're on stage, once you're in front of that group of people or the camera or whatever, and you're feeling a little bit anxious, you can use movement to minimize anxiety. And this does a couple of great things for you. First of all, your natural gestures, your movement, your body language while you speak will make you a more engaging speaker. You've noticed already, I use my hands a lot. That's just the way I talk. But also doing that and using my hands, it spends energy that my body has created through nervousness and adrenaline. It has an outlet, it's going somewhere. So rather than stand in front of a group of people and be twitchy and nervous like some beginners do sometimes, I got an outlet for it. And it actually makes you more engaging as a communicator. There was a study done years ago on some TED Talks. TED is a massive platform in the communication world. They took two topics of the exact same idea. One was delivered by a communicator who was very outgoing, used lots of natural gestures. One was delivered by a communicator who was a good communicator, but was a little more stoic. The one talk, the guy who delivered the talk used about 900 gestures in roughly 18 minutes. The other guy used way less. And the amount of views and engagement on the talk with the 900 gestures blew the other one out of the water. Both similar topics, both great communicators, but the guy who used the gestures, people paid a lot more attention to. It's just more natural. Plus, that movement will help you relieve your own tension and help you hold an audience. Okay, and then just a couple more quick things before we go today. Enjoy the occasion. Man, try to make it fun. You have one opportunity with one audience to deliver this one idea one time. Enjoy it. You're there for a reason. And just like I mentioned earlier, I think you got something awesome and worthwhile to say. I think it would be a shame if you let your nerves distract your audience from the amazing message inside of you. So let's do it. Let's get rid of anxiety. Let's activate that relaxation response. Let's envision it as a worthwhile opportunity. And also, let's learn from feedback. Let's see what our audience has to say. Let's listen to our peers and let's search for some objective sources just to learn how we can get better. So really quickly, let's hit the checklist again before we wrap this up. Prepare and practice. Start early on and do it often. Modify our thoughts and our attitudes, thinking positively. Visualize success. Use stress control breathing, meditation, other relaxation techniques. Incorporate your natural controlled movements and learn from the experience of public speaking and enjoy it. We don't all ace it our first time. That's okay. But we can always get a little better. I think you're going to do great.